Today, we're going to look at using the DynamicsNAV query component for Matillion ETL. So, let's get started. The DynamicsNAV query component is available within an orchestration job. We can simply select the component and drag it onto the screen where we require. First of all, we must connect it up to the start component, and now we can configure the properties of the component. So the first thing we need to give is the URL of our DynamicsNAV server. And now we must give a username and password for a user who's authenticated to access that DynamicsNAV data. This should be a DynamicsNAV user. Now we can give the server instance name. And now in the data source dropdown, Matillion has connected into our DynamicsNAV server, and it has listed all of the tables which are available for that user to view. So I can select one of these tables. I can select which columns from this table I want to appear in my new table. So I'm going to bring through here a subset of these columns. And then finally, I'm prompted to give an S3 staging area that I want to stage the data via, and the name of a new table that Matillion will create for us. So now my DynamicsNAV query component has turned green. I can simply right-click and I can choose to run this job. I can monitor the progress of the job in the task pane at the bottom below. So here we can see Matillion is streaming the records from the results of my DynamicsNAV query up into a file in S3. And then once that file is completed within my S3 bucket, Matillion will copy that down into my database. So we can see that job took just over 20 seconds to run. And now I can create a transformation job to view this data. So in my transformation job, I can read this data in using a table input component. So here's the table I've just created. Let's bring through all columns from that table into this job. And now my table input has turned green, so I can sample this. And here we can see an example of the data that's available to us. Now I can transform this data using some of my transform components. So in this case, I want to aggregate up my cities and see how many orders I get per city. So I'm going to do that using my aggregate component. I want the data to flow from my sales orders into the aggregate. And then let's group this by city. Let me get a count of the number of sales orders. And now I can sample this data. So now I can see by city how many sales orders I've got. So if I sort this on the count, we can see that we have the most sales orders from Manchester, UK.